everyone. Have you ever thought what it costs to leave a DV relationship? Like what is the cost to women, to children, and the general impact that this must have on them? And it's time for us to consider that because the reason why women often stay within a relationship is because there is a financial burden if they choose to leave. And this is like, it can be estimated, it has been estimated, I think, at around $16,000 for a woman to leave a DV relationship. Now, the reasons for that are quite obvious. You know, if a person is leaving their home, the place in which they have all their appliances and they have maybe not a sense of safety, but they do have invested financially a fair bit in over quite some period of time generally, then what would it cost to leave all of that behind and to have to go and start afresh? There are many women I've spoken with over the years who have recognised that sometimes it appears to be easier to stay within a violent and abusive relationship than it is to actually have to face the financial stress associated with completely starting afresh. Now, our role, I think, in politics is to be able to find ways to make that easier for women and children or victims in general, not always women, to be able to leave a relationship in which they have invested so much in terms of their own resources and so on. So when a person leaves a home, not only do they have to find a new place to live, and often that's very difficult because the person who is in often many cases is the primary provider of funds is the perpetrator. For them to leave and be able to find a place often in itself is a challenge. They'll find themselves on many occasions leaving a home and having to live in a hotel or some sort of hostel arrangement so that they are safe from the perpetrator of violence and abuse. Now, to make that decision a traumatic decision, it affects everything that they do. They feel lost. They feel often unsupported because people aren't listening to them about what has been happening to them, because the perpetrator is often perceived as this good and gentle guy or woman who does all the right things when in public, but in the privacy of their own home behaves completely differently. I think that this is something that we really need to confront, is how when people need to leave their home, how are they able to do that in the most effective and beneficial way to the victim of the family violence, including the children. The children will leave and not have their favourite toy with them, not have the comfort of their own room and the safety, whatever that may provide for them, and they're left completely confused about what is happening to them, because often they still obviously feel that they need to, or that they love, I should say, the perpetrator, and they don't often understand what's happening for them either. Now, one of the issues that does concern us is the opportunity that women do not have in terms of leaving the home, because they are not provided with the legal support that they need. Often they have trouble finding a lawyer who's prepared to represent them appropriately, and one that is prepared to represent them free of charge. They don't exist. Legal aid often is not provided. So they're left in the lurch, wondering how they're going to be supported legally. But more importantly, I think they need to be supported by magistrates. Now, one of the posts that I made recently, I did talk about this, and it is of primary importance that magistrates do not necessarily sit with the victim around what's happened to them and enable them to feel safe and secure in the decisions that the victim may make. So, where a victim decides that they need to exit the relationship, often it is the perpetrator who may get to stay within the home. Now, it's easy to understand why that is, because if a person wants to exit something, they have to move away from whatever it is they're exiting. They have to move away from the relationship. And that often to actually get out of the house and away is the best solution. And to them, but it isn't the best solution because, as I've just said, they're leaving everything behind. So we need to find a way by which that isn't necessary. Where a woman who decides, in most cases, who decides to leave the home can go and seek help from services, and those services place the case before the magistrate. Sometimes in this instance the police have already been called, so there's some sort of intervention, but a woman needs to be able to go and speak to a magistrate about this situation so that she is not deprived of the home, and the perpetrator has certain penalties placed upon them around accessing the home, around coming within a certain parameter of the victim and the children, and to make sure that they're protected. But unfortunately, magistrates don't do that. Magistrates tend to think in terms of the perpetrator, I think, as opposed to the impact this situation has on the victim, because many of these magistrates come from a mindset which is set back in the 1950s. They haven't moved themselves forward to 2022 when we're confronting these issues far differently than what we used to in the past, where we actually see the victim as being someone that needs to be protected as opposed to the perpetrator, who in most cases is a male, has not done anything wrong, or that their rights, for whatever reason, need to be protected. The reality is that when a person commits a violent act, whether it be emotional, physical, or psychological, against another person, then that person, until this matter is before the court, needs to be protected. It's not about right or wrong at this point. It's about protecting whatever those allegations, protecting the person from the allegations they're making against another. That is paramount, and their rights need to be protected. It can be sorted out in court, whether that be through criminal processes, civil action, or through the family law court. Either way, it needs to be sorted out. And magistrates need to get their act together and make decisions that are about protecting the victim and the children. And we at Real Change SA want to change the legislation so that that is actually what does happen. Thanks for being with me, everybody. Take care and look after yourselves.